Oh, hi there, friends. Mandy here. Restorative grief is all about creating easy access to healing no matter where or who you are. That's why I want you to remember that if you want grief support beyond a podcast, my 31-day guidebook is available to order on Amazon. Embracing our losses without losing ourselves is a reflective journey into the holistic needs of grievers and learning to support yourself, mind, heart, body, and spirit. Don't just wing it. You can lean into grief work with a guide. The link for the book and more are available in the show notes, and as always, you can reach out with questions. But for now, let's get on to this week's episode. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. You are listening to episode 159, titled Hope for Grieving Hearts with Anne-Marie Lockmyer. If you've ever felt unseen in your grief, my guest today is here to make sure that never happens again. Anne-Marie Lockmyer is a best-selling author and co-founder of the Grief and Trauma Healing Network and mygriefcare.com, a comprehensive online resource for individuals, organizations, and communities to learn about providing meaningful support for themselves and others through loss. Today, she's sharing about her own experience of widowhood and loss and how it motivated her to dedicate her life to supporting others through their own grief and finding hope in the midst of sorrow. Hey everyone, welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. I'm your host, Mandy, and today I'm really honored to bring my guest, Anne-Marie Lockmyer, to you. She's a professional grief specialist. She's certified in critical incident stress debriefing, which we know in the industry is a really crucial methodology for supporting people that are in the middle of intense traumatic experiences right here, right now. And she's also an 8-time award-winning author on grief. And she, along with her husband, Ron Gray, offers comprehensive grief support through intensive programs, retreats, and specialized sessions for those experiencing loss. Anne-Marie, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you. It's really exciting to be here and talk about this. Thank you.
I love that we share that it's exciting to talk about grief because that is an uncommon response, but anyone that's listening is right there with us because we understand the importance of unpacking this incredibly complicated and nuanced part of our human experience. So, why don't you just start briefly by telling me what drew you into becoming a grief specialist?
Well, it certainly wasn't in my plan in my life. I had a very nice little life. And just to try and just summarize it very quickly is that I was away on a trip one day and I got a call that my husband of 25 years had suddenly died of a brain aneurysm. And I was out of the country, and that changed my world, right? Everything I knew turned upside down at that moment, as I'm sure anyone else who suffered a devastating loss knows well. And that just changed the whole direction of my life. So as I was looking for my own healing and experiencing it, first of all, I realized nobody knew what to do with me, Mandy.
Yeah.
They just didn't know. And I remember thinking, wow, that's not helping right now. That's actually hurting. Or I thought, maybe I'll have to write a pamphlet to help people. And I just started because, they were doing things that I would have done myself
Yeah.
prior to losing my husband. Actually, I was horrified how I treated grieving people or didn't treat them prior to his death. But I just started taking notes, and eventually it actually led to a book, to help those who care about grievers know how to support them. So just a short little guidebook, because what I found is it wasn't that people didn't care. They were so uncomfortable that they didn't know what to do. So they would either turn away from me, avoid me, or they would say or do something foolish, right? Or try to fix it when you can't fix it. So I know their intentions were good, but it wasn't very helpful. So as I wrote the book, and that did well, and I was on my own healing journey, I went lots of ways to try to get some healing because I was in therapy and I wasn't getting any better. So I kept seeking things on my own, and in the process got some of my own training and also got trauma trained and just experienced my own healing experience through a few different tools. And so that led me then to get certified as a grief specialist and do these other things so that then I could help other people. It was never anything that I planned, but it's my greatest joy. And that's why I get excited, because society doesn't get grief. And so many grievers are just lost as to what to do. They're suffering, and there's just not enough support and understanding out there. So to be able to walk with them through this and companion them, and it's an honor, and who would have ever thought? And so it's grown from there. And so working with individuals and groups and therapists, and it's just been wonderful. And as you can tell, I get excited and can't talk enough about it because it's so important. And there are so many hurting hearts out there.
Yeah, it's interesting you say they didn't know what to do with you. I can relate, of course, and I feel like in that same space, grievers don't know what to do with themselves. And
Mhm.
so being able to work with someone who says, "Hey, I don't know what you've gone through. I know what my experience was like. Can I help you uncover your own experience? Can I help you find words to tell people how to process and how to deal with you, how to sit with you, and maybe just be quiet with you?" Is such a sacred space to occupy as a person who's gone through grief and
Mhm.
given their lives over to that kind of training. And so I'm curious how you're remarried now, of course, to your partner Ron, and you guys
Mhm.
work together through your LLC, the Grief and Trauma Healing Network.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yes.
just curious, like, how did that start to flesh out? How did you realize, oh, I've now built this new beautiful work life for myself, and now I found this partner too, and going that same direction here?
That's a lovely question. I wanted to be healthy on my own, and I knew I needed to be okay before I would ever be in a relationship again, because I needed some healing, right? I didn't want the relationship to be filling a void that I needed to try and,
Yeah.
take care of first. So so I didn't want it to use it to avoid my grief. But Mandy, I never planned on being married again. I had a wonderful husband, and I just never planned on it. And it's very interesting. I was doing widows retreats, and someone told me about this gentleman who's a therapist, a marriage and family therapist, who also had a retreat center on his property. And they told me I needed to go meet him. And so I went to meet him to see if it would be a good place for me to hold one of my retreats. And so not only is he a therapist, he's actually a widower, and he had lost his wife. I lost my husband suddenly, but he lost his wife to a 4-year battle with cancer and was her caregiver. And we just became friends. And he wasn't looking to get married either, but we both wanted to work on grief. And he came alongside and wanted to see what I was doing, because he was the first to say, as a therapist, he knew nothing about grief.
Yeah.
Nothing. And so he came alongside me and started working with my groups and other things like that. And he got more special training and even more trauma training as well. And then we came together as a couple. We fell in love very unexpectedly, and worked together now. And we have created, we have the business, but we also created a free grief support website, with all sorts of videos. And we have our YouTube channel, and we just, whatever we can do, we work together. We do free workshops for churches to teach them how to, help grievers wherever we can go,
Mm.
to get the message out, to help the griever or the one who wants to support them. So I would never have imagined it, that I could have this wonderful partner, and it was completely unexpected. And I have to tell you, I feel like he's my bonus round. I never expected to get another chance, and it's very sweet. And I know not everybody gets that. But if there's anyone listening and you never thought it would happen, just like I did, you just never know.
You don't. And I'm curious, what do you feel is different about grief as a widow from other experiences of grief that you've encountered in your life?
Oh, so are you talking about losses, like, hurts and those kind of things,
Yeah.
like that
So,
kind of grief?
yeah, we know grief comes from all different angles, right? But
Mhm.
if you have experienced, I know that being widowed is a very unique
Mhm.
flavor, so to speak. Uh, One I've never encountered personally, right, in my own life. But I also know that it's hard to differentiate between what those experiences are like
Mhm.
without creating a hierarchy. And I know that you have the intelligence and the experience and the education to not create a hierarchy around it, but also, how is it different from someone who has lost a parent or a sibling? What is unique about being widowed that I think is important, that you think is important for others to hear?
Great question. And I like your sensitivity to the hierarchy because I think sometimes we do that based on like how even someone lost somebody. Like someone will say, well, you lost them this way, so that's worse, or you lost them that way. And they do. They think, like someone, for instance, with my husband, Ron, they would have said, well, you knew she was sick, you knew it was coming, right? Whereas mine was sudden. And they'd say mine is worse. And I'm saying, no, they're all terrible,
Yeah.
right? They're all terrible. And I wouldn't want any of them. But for a widow, what we have found is that it's what's unusual about the loss, and it's not that it's worse, it just tends to impact every area of your life. That's what we find because their identity is so much in that partner that, and it doesn't mean that when you lose a different loss that it's not impacting lots of areas, but there are secondary losses.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Wounds on
Yep.
top of the wounds,
Yep.
not just losing that person. So what happens often with a widow is, so she's lost her husband, who is maybe her partner or her best friend. She possibly has lost her financial support, right? She maybe lost her handyman, right? Her computer guy, the person who grounds her, right? Maybe the person who took care of the finances. Also, the grandfather for the grandkids, the one who supports their children. If you would list all the losses, and it's one of the things that we do at the Widows Retreat is to list all their losses. And you can do it for other losses as well, by the way. If a parent loss, a child loss, because I think when you write down the secondary losses, it helps the griever understand why they are hurting so much.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like you didn't just, if you lose a parent, you're not just losing your mother, your father, you may be losing the person you went to for
Mhm.
guidance, right?
Yep.
Or your coach and all those things. And I also find with widows, they lose their identity. Like they don't, half of them is missing. So they just, so much of their lives are associated to being with this partner and doing things with this partner. So social situations can be very uncomfortable for them. Plus, people can shun them.
Stop.
I'm like,
Yes.
I
People
can't,
stop being invited to couples events because
you
they're,
do, you stop being,
yeah.
so on top of that, you've lost your spouse, you lose your friends, and they don't know who they are. And I like to say they're in a world that's familiar but so different. So we compare it, and again, it could be with another loss too. If you go to your home and you've lived there for a long time, you know where everything is, so you can find your way around, but it's completely dark. So you go in there and you should still be able to find your way around, but it's difficult because you can't see anything, but you know where everything is. But now someone's rearranged all the furniture. So you are bumbling, right? Like there is familiarity, but yet everything is so different. And they are bumbling, trying to find their way. They don't understand what's going on. They're so overwhelmed. They're brokenhearted. And they just don't know what to do. Does that help? It's just,
Absolutely. Yes.
it's
I was even thinking the funny thing about your metaphor of bumbling in the dark with rearranged furniture is the accusation from people. Well, why didn't you just turn on the light? What if you're covered in bruises? Why do you keep running into that same table? I think the inability to create compassion for someone who is grieving a loss that creates such a thick brain fog that can last for years
Mhm.
is a great place for individuals, anyone listening, anyone who knows a widow, to reach out today and say, I wonder if you are still experiencing brain fog and how I might support you in that. Because it can't be easy to know that it's been how many years and everyone else has moved on and is fine, and you remain really stumbling through the dark in a lot of ways. One of my best friends lost her husband, my husband's best friend, years ago, almost 10 years now. it's one of those losses where it feels like yesterday, so we stopped counting, frankly.
Mm.
His children are now very grown, and we say it all the time. She and I are just in awe of how we reference him and think about, didn't he say that last week? Okay, no,
Mhm.
it was a decade ago. Okay. Well, it feels like yesterday. And that sensation of timelessness around a loss, especially I would imagine as a widow, is very unique.
It is unique, but like you said, all the other ones are important too. They're all terrible, but there is definitely, it's why right now we really are specializing with widows,
Yes.
because that is our sweet spot. Now, we used to work with everybody, but especially being widowed ourselves. And we can see just with any griever, right? They're suffering, and most of them aren't equipped
Yeah.
for the journey, because society doesn't prepare us. And so they're wandering around lost, and there's some things that we can do. I always say, we can't fix it, but there are some things we can do to make it suck a little less.
Yeah.
You
And let me
know?
guess, it's not sign you up for a dating website, right? Is
Oh,
that
no, but your friends will say all that. Oh my goodness. And I mean, how many of us have heard, "You're not over it yet?"
Oh my
Or
God.
it's, and from family members.
Yeah.
"Well, it's been a year." I heard that from one of my family members. "Well, it's been a year." Yes. And I wish grievers had a way of showing people their injuries,
Mm,
because I try to remind them, if you were to compare this to a traumatic physical injury,
mm,
you wouldn't expect to be able to run a marathon all of a sudden after all these broken bones, and people wouldn't expect you to, right? You
mm.
would also be gracious to yourself, because you'd know you'd have to take it easy. And we are some of our worst, criticizers, right? Thinking that we aren't doing enough, thinking that we should be better than we are, and feeling judged by people, and oftentimes pretending that we're okay when we're not, because we don't want to be judged. And so it's serious, it's deep, it's traumatic, and it needs the same kind of care and attention and sensitivity as a physical injury, but people don't see it, which is why people wore black for a long time. Remember years ago?
Yeah.
So that people would understand, I'm mourning, I'm grieving. And the only way to find your way through grief is to grieve.
Yeah.
It's Grief is your companion after this pain. It's not something to shy away from. It's necessary, but it's unwelcome sometimes, right? It certainly is, but it's your companion for this loss, and it's the way your body deals with it, and your mind, and the brain fog that you said, Mandy. I mean, what does that tell us about the toll that the grief is taking on us?
Yeah. I have a friend who had a traumatic brain injury in a car accident. And when we met, it had probably been like 6 to 8 months after this accident and diagnosis for her. And the recognition that she found in me of like, oh, that probably makes everything harder, including explaining to people why everything is harder, gave her permission to say, oh my God, I can be not okay around her, around Mandy. She recognizes there's something a little bit off, even though I appear externally fine. And it made me think a lot about how grief is considered in our culture as well, of if you present as okay, then you should be able to return to normal activities with no issues or no disruptions, which is the complete opposite of the approach grievers really need. We need not allowances every day to do half of what we're expected to do, but the compassion to be not okay from day to day, or to have, I don't know, good and bad days. Yet we're in a society that just really doesn't have, like you said, capacity to understand what that is and what that looks like, or even grace to let someone not be okay and maybe not produce as much as we're used to getting out of them.
That is so important. I don't get to do it very often. I wish we could do it more, but I have worked with a few businesses and human resource organizations to help them prepare for a griever coming back to work,
Yeah.
right? How can you make a good space for them?
Mm.
and acknowledge what they're going through and help prepare their coworkers. And boy, when they do it, it's wonderful. And I'm so grateful. So I know we're making progress. We are making progress, but we've got a ways to go. But I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, let's stay there for just a minute because I'm suspicious that there are people listening whose companies would never in a million years create funding to bring you and your husband in, despite how brilliant it would be. So I do think we could offer like one or two little tidbits about how people might make space for their coworkers if they are grieving or their peers, or even take an idea back to HR to say, hey, have you considered this as a part of our package or employee care as far as bereavement leave or in-house care for grievers goes? What would you say to those people who are like, you have the ear of HR here, tell them this or two things that would be helpful?
Well, first of all, it wouldn't involve a lot at all. It's really about communication,
Mm,
right? And meeting, first of all, with the griever
mm,
and finding out before they come back, how are they doing? We feel they're probably going to be limited. Can someone help them with their workload, right? Giving them permission about, do you want to talk about your spouse or not? Do you want your coworkers to say anything to you or not? Because sometimes they don't want to talk about it. And
yeah.
so can you imagine if the coworkers knew that she doesn't want to talk about it? But if the coworkers knew she does want to talk about it, then that would help too. And we
Yes.
also know that can change moment to moment. So, right, moment to moment. And then maybe giving them the freedom to know when you're having a tough time, here's your safe space. Like you talked about the sacred space, right? If all of a sudden you feel like you're going to lose it and you're going to cry because it's going to come out of nowhere, we've got this room over here setting for so that you can do what you need to do. Or maybe they're going to have a key employee that's close to them check in, like be their check-in person, right? Like I'm going to be your go-between. I'm going to check in on, there's so many different things. And there's counseling and support that they can get them as well. But just giving them grace and letting them have the freedom to be okay and not okay. And sometimes they're going to want to do, but maybe sometimes they're having a tough time and they need to have the freedom to be able to go to HR or whoever and just say, I'm having a tough time.
It's so insightful and so valuable because even as a peer to say, hey, I was listening to this podcast episode and I realized you might need to be able to say that you need extra help. And I never would have thought of that. Can I be that person for you? Like, what a gift. Thank you. I think that, well, I think back to when I was working um, through my mom's cancer treatment. I was working at a community college at the time, which was a great place to work, but I was an absolute wreck. And I had 4 months between her diagnosis and her death. And so in that interim, I was trying to find a new job. I was trying to relocate. I didn't know what the time frame was and thought, let me get as close to her as possible. And there were days, like you said, that moment to moment, I would want to talk to someone. I would not be able to do anything. Or I would say, if I can just focus on work because the flow is intense with students today, I will survive the day and everything will be fine. Nobody mentioned anything bad to me. Nobody ask me any questions about my personal life. Let me just process financial aid and move on. It is astounding how little we allow ourselves to be that honest and vulnerable and authentic with people about our pain. So
And that starts with someone reaching out to the griever, right? So that they create that safe place to be authentic and not just say, "Oh, if you need anything, let me know. Welcome back. If you need anything, let me know."
yeah, no, thank
No, it's
you.
like, we know you are coming back and you are impaired as you should be,
Yeah.
right? You are coming back and you are wounded. You're a walking wounded person and there needs to be some accommodation. And we're willing to do that. And we may change it as it goes, right? And now maybe the griever isn't going to want it. Maybe they're going to think, I don't want any of that, but at least they've approached them. But it's that person creating that safe space. And how would you like your coworkers to teach? What do you want them to
Yeah.
know? What do you want them to know about your loved one's death, even?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people want to share details, sometimes they don't. So that's that again, that safe space for someone to be authentic. And even if it's that one person, you come to me, we're going to figure this out together. And we're so glad you're back.
I think that that's the part of grieving that we forget. We forget that this is a human experience, just like getting married, just like getting divorced, just like having a baby. All of those life changes have, albeit somewhat awkward, workplace equivalencies, right? I've had the workplace baby shower that I'm like, this feels obligatory and bless your hearts. If you'd asked me, I would have said no, right? But we go through it and yeah, why would grief be any different? Hey, I see you, you're going through a big change. Can we support you? What does that look like? Does it look like a Target gift card? Sure.
Mhm.
Here you go. We all put in for, you don't need diapers, but you might need tissues. So everybody's pitched in, whatever it is. And it may feel silly or awkward, but I think giving people that space to really show up for themselves in this place where they spend more time than anywhere else. Most of us, right? We spend more hours with our coworkers than we do with our immediate family. Let's teach each other how to be not family in the workplace and get weird about it, but respectful and honoring to each other as humans. I think that that's really it's a beautiful opportunity to expand who we are as people and become better employees, but really just better humans.
I love what you said there. And when you mentioned about authenticity, let's be real. Like you said, so for instance, if Beth comes to work, maybe it is okay to say, okay, everybody, Beth is coming back right now. Here she is. And this is awkward, right?
Yeah.
Awkward. That's the truth. We know she's hurting and we all feel bad. So let's just acknowledge this is awkward, but Beth, we're so glad you're back. Like, just talk about the elephant in the room.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then everyone just, you know, and that can make such a difference. And it just, you know, yeah. Anyway, you can,
Big deal.
and when there's a death in the workplace, so we've gone in for that as well. There's a
Mhm.
death in the workplace, and so we'll go in and we'll do a critical incident stress debrief and help them, work through that as well, and everybody kind of process their grief together, so because they're all feeling different things about it. But anyway, I think it's wonderful if human resources will step up to the plate, and I also think it would be great, and we have had companies where they'll pay for them to get some grief support, some counseling, or like a program like you would do. It's well worth it because it's only going to help their team member, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I come into work and I know I'm supported through thick and thin, I mean, if I broke my arm, someone would offer to carry my bag for me. So why would it be any different if my mental capacity is limited or distracted or even just disheveled? Why would someone not offer to carry my mental load or support me through it? It makes perfect sense to us,
To
right?
us. And
Everyone should be
again,
listening to us because we get it. Oh,
yes.
okay. Speaking of you getting it, you've got this wonderful event that you love to host, the Next Chapter Retreat for Widows. And I know this episode's going live in October. I think you will have just finished up a retreat for 2024. But tell us about what makes this retreat so special and what people who are interested in it can look forward to.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked about that because it is our favorite thing to do after doing all these different projects and things. So we usually have about 5 of them a year,
Okay.
and we don't have 2025 dates out yet, but they can always go on our website and look for them. But what we've done is through our own experiences and our training, we just figured out the best way to help widows. We just came up with if we could do anything for widows to help them in their grief, what would we do? And this is for a very specific uh, place in their journey. It is not newly grieving.
Mhm.
Okay. It is much farther along. They're not ready for our work because you're just barely existing and trying to get through in the beginning. You're so shocked. So we don't like to work with anyone before 6 months. Even that's early. We'd rather wait a year or more. But what we find is our typical person is somebody who is still suffering so much, wants to feel some relief or better, but is completely stuck, doesn't know what to do, right? But wants some relief. So what we do, we only take 4 widows. It's so small and intimate because we want to work personally with them. And two things that it does. So we have this little retreat center, and they come from all over. So we've got them from different countries and different states. And it doesn't matter how they lost their husband, they connect these women so quickly, and they're nervous about coming. And the first night, do you want to know what they talk about more than anything? The first night, how the people around them don't get them,
Mm.
their friends, their family. As a matter of fact, some of them will say, well, I'm glad you're going to this camp to go get fixed. It's just, oh, that's lovely.
That's a
So
phone number of a person we lose for a little
we,
while. Weird. I
that's
don't
right.
know why I
Well,
haven't
I
called.
say, you have to reevaluate some relationships
Hmm.
sometimes. But so what we do is, so they get this fellowship, which is so special, the bonding that goes on, and they help each other. Does that, just talking to each other helps them? And what we find is by the end, we start on Friday, we end on Monday. They're forever friends, and they have this group now that, and they stay together for years. Sometimes they even travel together. So you have this support community, and they're texting. But what we also do is we process. So what we specialize in is there's so much pain and emotion going on with the loss, right? Things that you probably know you're carrying, but a lot of things that you don't. And what I say is our process doesn't create pain, but it reveals pain. So we really go deep into your heart, and we can shine a light on the pain that you have, and then we can actually clear it. Does that make sense? Like, we work with it, we acknowledge it, we give it the attention it needs, and we try and take it from the heart so that we can make room for less pain and more happy memories. Does that make sense? While still remembering their husbands well. It's not about forgetting at all. It is about remembering them, bringing them forward, but in a new way. So there's so much respect for that relationship, because a widow often feels, if she does start to feel better, she is being disloyal to her husband.
Yeah.
And that is a terrible, terrible burden to bear, right? That it means she didn't love him. And that's not true. See what we do to ourselves? So we just are giving them permission to work through whatever they work through. And oftentimes, widows are trying to figure out, who am I now? What's my life look like now? But until they've had a little bit of healing, right? So, some release, they usually can't even answer that question.
Right.
Right, because it's like, I think you're asking that question way too soon, because your filter is so full of sorrow and confusion. You're not ready. But if we can get you a little bit of clarity, a little bit of healing and relief, then we open you up to being able to ask that question. So
Yeah.
I think sometimes we really go out of order. Not everybody needs what we do, but it's so powerful. And let me tell you, they are exhausted
Of course.
because of the emotions. They're like, I am exhausted, and there's lots of crying. It's the cry zone, and it's the sacred space. But because we work with them privately, it's just one-on-one for this stuff, so it's safe. And then we pamper them the whole time.
Mm.
So we do massages, we have equine coaching, we work with horses. Oh, and my goodness, the horses, they're wonderful to work with. And I think it's just a time for the widows to get so much special care and feel loved and valued, because they don't get that. They're usually taking care of other people. So it's our greatest joy. We're family by the end of it. And don't know if I've said too much, but it's, and people can't just register. They have to talk to us first, because we want to make sure
That they're in the
it's
place.
that it's a
Yeah.
good fit. And if it's not, we suggest something else. It's what we do isn't for everybody. And, we love to share other resources. That's why, before we started recording, I want to understand more and more of what you do, so that we can figure out what that individual may benefit from.
Yeah. What
So
I love about everything you just described is this intentional intimacy that you create for the person to really explore their own experience of loss. My understanding of being widowed creates this vacuum of, I can't think about them, not because then I'll never stop, but because I'm always thinking about them. And if I think too deeply about them, all of the pain will come to the surface. And that's what I don't know what to process with. But by creating avenues for attunement, both with themselves and their own stories, but with others who've experienced that, you're creating incredible safety and belonging for people to really metabolize what they're carrying. Because, like you said, it's not about moving on from our person, it's about moving forward and bringing that person and that story with us in a new understanding and in a new seat of honor, really.
Yes, it's a new seat of honor. And we talk about their husbands all the time.
Yeah.
They're part of the retreat, and we give them a lot of attention and understanding. And of course, this doesn't just have to be a spouse, right? But the importance that that relationship still exists,
Yes.
that we don't just remember that they died, we want to remember that they lived.
Mhm.
Right? And how do you honor that? And, if you come to our home, you'll see pictures of our spouses, Ron's and my spouses, they're part of us.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do, and this is the thing that I love more than anything, is when the widows will say, I've had my first happy memory. Like, I thought about him and I smiled.
Yeah.
I didn't just break down and cry. You'll always miss them, right? You don't get over it. That's not it at all. Um, but in time, you can be good and life can be good, even though it's different,
Yeah.
right? Even though it's different and it's not just time, there's a lot to be done. And I just encourage anybody who is feeling that way, discouraged, overwhelmed, that if you're in that spot, it's not because there's anything wrong with you. It's not at all. So often you just don't have the tools, and it may not be time for the tools either. There's a time where you're just in a pit and it is totally appropriate, and that's where you need to be. But then when you're ready to start doing a little bit more work, when the time is right,
Mhm.
you just don't have the equipment. And that's where, again, you wouldn't take care of your own teeth, right? Clean your teeth or whatever it is.
You do a
Yeah,
little maintenance on your
you
own
think,
daily,
but
and then you
but
still go every 6 months for the full cleanup, and
right,
hopefully
you need something, whether it be community, right? And I can't encourage enough getting grief support, just with people who get you,
yeah.
that can relate like that. I know you have that group and that, right? Where they can
Mhm.
just, it helps validate where you're at. And that's what our retreat does, is validate them.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm not crazy, right? I'm not crazy. So it's
Mm.
you mentioned the word sacred, and I would say again, it's a sacred space. And I love it. We just love it. We love all our ladies, and they send us updates for years. It's just love it.
Oh, that's amazing. And Marie, your work is so necessary and so invitational. I'm really, really just grateful for you spending time with me today. And I'm excited to see how many of our listeners pipe up and say, oh my gosh, thank you. I never knew about this widow retreat. And that sounds exactly like what I'm chasing down. So all of your links to your website will be in our show notes as well. But if we could end on one like myth or one misconception about grief that you have busted up in your work or that you have encountered from people that has been such an impactful thing to correct and help them understand differently about loss, what would you end with?
Oh boy. I think I will say again that a traumatic loss is devastating, it's earth-shattering, but it doesn't have to be the end of your life.
Mm.
That there is hope. I promise you, there is hope. Things won't be the same. You won't be the same. But there's hope. There's help. Don't give up. Just believe there's hope. And that if you don't have hope, we can have it for you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I
We can
often
have
say,
it,
borrow
borrow it,
my hope.
borrow my hope. And let me tell you, if you're an early griever, newly grieving, it's okay if you don't have any hope at all,
Yeah.
because that would be normal and appropriate. You're just getting through each moment. So don't think you aren't where you're supposed to be. But when you're ready, there's support out there. Let people know what you need. There's so much we can do to make it suck a lot less. And you matter. And you are going to probably grieve longer and harder than most people think you should. And there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
They just don't get it.
Mm.
So they're getting my permission, right?
Perfect.
To
It's
do what
perfect.
they need to do for them, that you need to do what you need to do for you. Your way will be the right way.
Anne-Marie, thank you so much for being here and for that last little bit of encouragement. If you're listening, you can check out her work at griefandtraumahealing.com, and that link will be in the show notes, of course. And Anne-Marie Lockmyer, you're a gift. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right back at you.
Thank you for listening to episode 159 of Restorative Grief. Anne-Marie's work and personal experience of loss is a beautiful example of how exploring our grief stories allows us to open up and become richer versions of ourselves for ourselves and others. It's not loss that transforms our lives, it's the way we respond to our losses that helps us grow. If you or someone you know is also a widow, please consider sharing this episode with them as a gentle nudge to remember that you see them and they are not alone. If this is your first time listening to Restorative Grief, thank you for being here. I would be honored for you to subscribe and leave a review to help other listeners find this necessary work. Check out the show notes for links to Anne-Marie's website and her work, as well as the Patreon for this show if you'd like to become a patron or gain access to the workbook. If you're already a financial supporter, let me just reiterate how much I appreciate your backing and your investment in this work. It truly is life-changing, and I don't mean just for me. And as always, before we go, one last thing. Please remember, the only solution for grief is to do the work of grieving. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.